Valentine, a small livestock town located in the state of New Hanover. Home to just a few hundred citizens, this little settlement is always thriving with activity. A town of country folk who have everything they need to live a simplistic life. A stable, a hotel for travelling folk, its own small theatre, a doctor's office, a county sheriff, and most importantly, a couple of saloons. But as with most other populated areas, it does have its share of issues. The local sheriff claims that with this being a livestock town, it consistently attracts reprobates like flies. Rustlers, bandits, and outlaws from all walks of life will always try their luck in town. But it seems that this isn't Valentine's only problem. It constantly has a run of bad luck and bad inhabitants. Now, is this solely because of its attractive opportunities to the criminal world, or is it something else? Let us take a look at another possibility. You're listening to Phil from Philby Gaming, and today's video is this: A Curse Upon a Town, the story of Valentine. Upon meeting with a camper, the man tells the story he once learned from a fellow traveller. It goes on to describe a massacre that once occurred.
It's like the town of Valentine. I'm sure you know the place. People there are convinced they're under some curse, that their run of bad luck is punishment for something. Shared a fire out near there with an old fellow who told me he thinks it's the Indians. He said he'd heard years ago about an ancient Indian painting. One of them they did on animal hides that showed a massacre by the settlers. And the rumor was, it was connected with Valentine in some way. He said the painting got torn up and thrown away, but he'd heard some pieces of it still exist. I don't know. We all tell ourselves things to explain what we can't explain. But what we do does come back on us, I reckon.
The town of Valentine, sometime in the mid-1800s, was originally the home of a tribe of native Indians. They lived their way of life, traditional to their customs and beliefs. A peaceful clan whom existed with the most simple of pleasures. A very close community who would spend their days caring greatly for one another, while raising their young, teaching them the ways of the tribe. This was unfortunately until one day the United States government decided that they too needed this land. A back and forth argument would ensue, with neither side wanting to back down. The tribe would refuse to give up their home so easy, and the military wouldn't take no for an answer. One fateful morning, the United States government would believe that enough was enough, and decided it was time to take what they thought was rightfully theirs, and take it by force. The military men would storm the reservation, and kill or capture anyone that they could. A horrific battle that would cost the lives of many young men, women, and children. Many lay dead across the open plains. Those who managed to survive would be taken and sent to live far, far away, being forced into setting up camp somewhere else, with them later retrieving the fallen members of their tribe and burying them in what would become an ancient Indian burial ground. This was unfortunately a common practice for the US government, as told by Hosea Matthews, as the gang would enter this area some years later.
What do you think?
If they wanted trouble, we wouldn't have seen them.
Poor bastards. We really screwed them over down here. Come on, let's not push our luck.
What happened?
Well, get in. I'll tell you. The Indians in these parts got sold a very raw deal. This is the heartlands we're going to. Good farming and grazing country, they lost it all. Stolen clean away from them it was, every blade of grass. Killed or herded up to the reservations in the middle of nowhere.
And how's that different from anywhere else?
Well, maybe it's not. I just heard some of the army out here was particularly unpleasant about it.
There was also a separate incident that occurred, further adding to the tension. An Indian family, believing that they had stumbled across a small fortune in the way of hidden treasure, were slaughtered by bandits for their findings and left for dead. This, in turn, would later lead the townsfolk to believe that the area of Valentine was under some form of a curse set upon them by the native Indians. You can hear them speak about it if you hang around the town for long enough.
You been in town long?
Well, you probably heard everyone talking about the curse here. Maybe not. Folk reckon luck runs bad in this town, and the superstitious among them reckon that ain't no coincidence.
People have been talking about a curse in Valentine as long as I can remember. Some reckon this was Indian land once, but I ain't sure.
All the trouble in Valentine of late, and people are starting to talk about the curse again.
Even after the Vandalin gang's first visit to Valentine, they would quickly learn of the curse.
Some lady I was speaking to in town told me about a curse.
A curse? Yeah, nothing's more romantic than a curse.
Exactly. Prince turned into a toad, lovers into stone, entire country turned into
Good
morons.
day, Mr. Morgan.
Curses everywhere.
What's Valentine's curse?
Well, I didn't quite understand what the woman was saying, kind of her being a bit of an idiot, but something about a massacre and a last surviving Indian cursing the county.
Well, if they massacred people, then they deserve to be cursed.
Of course.
But what was it? Was it just bad luck or bad weather or something else?
Something about an eagle or an owl. And a gravesite. I didn't really get it.
Reports from a local newspaper would also describe the events, which read the following. The town of Valentine has reported many strange sights and sounds in recent years, and residents speak of a curse that has fallen on the area. Spectral canoes have been seen out on the water, and the cries of mourning Indian mothers have been heard at night. At other times, usually on windy, starlit evenings, piercing cries can be heard from a distance. Residents claim that this is due to the Indian family murdered years ago with the treasure they had found. The reports are uncanny, yet come from several sources, and the prevalence of Indian artifacts around the town has only increased the locals' excitability. Was it all just talk, or whispers of frightened civilians, or was there truly a curse upon this place? Well, let's look at the current condition of Valentine, and more importantly, its local population. For such a small town, it has an incredibly high number of both deluded and troubled folk. For example, we have a prostitute who both drugs and then kills her victims. A local snake oil dealer whose forged medicines have been poisoning the townsfolk, leading to their demise in many cases. Elian Swan, a Black Widow murderer who was wanted for matricide. And of course, the infamous cannibalistic serial killer who would take pleasure in decapitating and dismembering his victims, Edmund Lowry Jr. The town of Valentine is also crawling with members of an outlaw gang, the O'Driscolls. They strut around the local area, boasting about who they are, with no fear from the local law, and even feel confident enough to set up a backroom operation behind the Valentine doctor's office, all of which is very well known about, even by the authorities. Now, why would they feel so confident as to be able to do this? Well, maybe the sheriff is not as innocent as he seems. Maybe he too has his hand in the cookie jar.
So you here for the auction? Because my advice would be to steer well clear of the fellow who runs that auction yard. Morris Payton's his name. Crooked as a dog's hind leg. More of a friend of the rustlers than any working man. And does Sheriff Malloy do anything about it? Of course he don't. They're all in it together.
So let's take a look at Sheriff Curtis Malloy a little. It would seem that the local protector has no hesitation as to indulge himself for his own personal gain. We hear of a rumour that the sheriff is being unfaithful to his wife, and later see a little evidence of this ourselves.
Fella come in here yesterday says the sheriff been seen with Moira again.
Oh, my lord. I wasn't expecting you back so soon. Mrs. Calthorpe was just leaving.
Sure. I'm sure. How much was you offering?
$50. Here.
Thank you. Madam.
Please, remember what I told you.
You see, Sheriff, I know your secrets, and I could spread them all over. Like Miss Moria?
Don't you dare mention Moira again. Now hush!
But what if the sheriff was to be discovered? What lengths would he go to protect his reputation? If you listen closely to the following, you will see just what happens to the locals if they decide to stand up to the law of Valentine.
Oh, Laura, don't be like that, please. How do you want me to be? Well, I love you.
You don't love anyone. Not me, not your wife, no one.
Oh, you're impossible.
Impossible? Really? I've wasted years on you and I'm impossible.
You're married too. You can be impossible.
Impossible. You are a sad little small town, self-important rat of a man. You know that? A rat. A rat who thinks he's a cat. That's your problem. Go to hell.
It would also seem that some of the local townsfolk are already on their way to turning to the dark side, such as this gentleman who frequents one of the local taverns.
You here for the auction then? Well, if you ain't here for the sheep, you won't get much more in Valentine, except shit on your shoes and a punch in the face. I swear, if I never see a sheep again, it'll be too soon. Bleeding little shits. I have dreams some nights of going over to that auction yard and gunning them all down. Anyways, enough of that.
This gentleman chooses to live in the livestock town, and yet has sadistic thoughts about the expected noise, even expressing what actions he wishes to take. The next part will contain a major spoiler for the game ahead, so please be aware. Another possible victim to the apparent curse is of course Thomas Towns, an incredibly generous family man who spends his life doing what he could for others. Even though he lives some distance from the town of Valentine, he would frequent there often, preaching his ways and asking for donations. His exposure to the locals of the town may very well have been where he contracted the dreaded tuberculosis, as he and his wife and child live somewhat remotely from civilization. And of course, this in turn would later become a big change in the life of Arthur Morgan. So what do you believe? Is the town of Valentine cursed, or is it just a myth people invented to excuse the actions of themselves? Let me know in the comment section below of your theory to this. What do you think is the cause of all the problems? Guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video and wish to see more like it, make sure you hit like and think about subscribing. Turn on notifications too to be the first alerted to new content on this channel. If you wish to get in touch, you can find me both on Instagram and TikTok. Details on screen now and links are provided in the video description below. This has been Phil of Philby Gaming, and I hope to see you all in the next one.